Agels per Gogeta and Text per Vegito was the best rotation in Dokkan's history. And you'll probably agree with me by the end of this video, as we'll go over almost every single decent rotation this game has known. And we'll start directly with the first quote-unquote best rotation in this game's history. Strength percent Bardock and Agels percent Goku. Those two guys came together on the same bed and were clearly meant to be.
So how are you feeling today?
I don't know. Like, I've been working on this thing for a while, and yeah, like, I'm grateful for where it's at, but I don't know. I felt like it could have been more. I wish it could have been more.
I see. So have you been taking the formula that we talked about last time, the prescribed dosage?
Yeah, I've been, but you know, when you've been summoning so hard, like spending 2,000 stones and not pulling a single new unit, that past celebration, like, it's really gotten to me. Like 2,000 stones and not a single new unit. If I find the Umatsu, like, I don't...
Okay! So I think what you need to do is you need to visit, let me hold on, I got the thing here. 5378芝港区東京1080001の Japan. Bandai Namco.
What's that?
It's Mr. Omatsu's address.
So you really want me to go to Japan right now? Do you know how expensive stones are? Like, you can only live with one kidney, and I already sold one to Omatsu. Trying to get Super Saiyan for Gogeta. What are you asking?
www.gfuel.vercel.app-sign up.
What are you saying?
Here.
It's just a link.
Go.
Go where?
San Diego.
But I thought I had to go to Japan.
Because G Fuel just launched the Vault Challenge. So if you sign up using code PROOF, you get a free chance at winning a trip to TwitchCon and a full gaming room makeover.
Wait. How do you know my code?
Because I'm coming with you.
Wow, that's some good stuff. And we'll start directly with the first quote-unquote best rotation in this game's history. Strength percent Bardock and Agels percent Goku. Those two guys came together on the same banner and were clearly meant to be ran together. They shared 3 links, which nowadays sounds pretty bad, but keep in mind that Dokkan hadn't been out for even 2 months. Like, most units barely linked together, especially the SSRs, who were the best units in the game, so this was huge. Then Bardock also gave 15% attack to the whole rotation, while also introducing the new best leader skill in the game, giving 25% attack to all types. So technically, the best rotation the game had at the time was 2 strength Bardocks with Agels percent Goku. And since this was before the link level update, key links procced twice for the unit in the middle slot. So Super Saiyan Goku had 4 ki from the 2 Bardocks, and then 3 ki from his passive, which meant you only needed another 5 ki to super with him, which was just so insane at the time. Like, bro, those were the early days of Dokkan. Super attacks weren't common, like, they were in fact pretty rare to see. So that rotation was just revolutionary, like, there's no other way to put it. And so far in a way better than like everything else the game had to offer at the time. As an honorable mention, we could also have any rotation featuring Interlis for about the same reasons. He had a 2 ki to all types leader skill and gave key support to the rotation, meaning it was much easier to super attack with multiple characters at the time. Like, by that point you could super attack at least once every turn, but have your whole rotation hit their super attacks? Yeah, this was rare. And not something you could see often outside of his team. Now, moving on to what the OGs would probably call the best rotation in Dokkan's history. Strength percent Gogeta and Physical percent Gotenks. Those two shared 4 links together, with 3 of them being key links. And since Gogeta introduced the 3 ki to all types leader skill, it meant those two guys had 11 ki at all time linked together, meaning you just couldn't miss a super attack with them. And these guys' super attacks were insane. Strength per Gogeta, as you already know, was straight up the best unit in the game, and the hardest hitting unit in the game with his immense damage multiplier and super effective against all types passive skill. But Gotenks was also pretty cracked. He had a pretty big attack buff in his passive and sealed on super, and most bosses back then weren't immune to sealing, meaning that not only was this rotation the hardest hidden rotation in the game, they were also at the same time pretty much untouchable thanks to Gotenks' sealing. Like, this rotation was just insane. Talking about Gotenks, this guy was so good that the next rotation also includes him. It was the rotation of Agel's per Vegito and Physicals percent Gotenks. Even though Gotenks didn't fit under the leader skill of Agel's per Vegito, Vegito was just so ridiculously broken with his counters. The fact that Gotenks could potentially give an additional counter to Vegito that turn by stealing the enemy's super attack more than made up for it. And they also shared 4 links together, with 3 of them being key links. So even though Gotenks had no leader skill buff, you could still manage to super with him. And if you didn't have Super Saiyan Gotenks, one of the other great rotations at the time was Agel's per Vegito and Air Oceanus Shenron. They shared the shock and speed link together. Oceanus sealed on super while also being AGL, so she fit under Vegito's leader skill, meaning that it was pretty easy to super with her and seal the enemy's super attack. Like, honestly, you could really make the argument here that Agel's per Vegito with any sealer at the time was one of the best rotations in Dokkan's history. Like, counters were just that good. But those two were really the one that synergized the best with Vegito, making them just insane rotations. The next rotation is actually a rotation featuring 3 units: Agel's per Vegito, Strengths per Gogeta, and Physicals percent Blue Vegito. That rotation was just insane, and was possible thanks to Physical Vegito Blue's new leader skill, who was literally just a cracked on version of Agel's per Vegito. Vegito, who was still a top tier unit, and Super Gogeta wasn't that far off either. And since they all perfectly linked together, that rotation was just nasty offensively. Like, literally no bosses at the time could survive that rotation. It was just crazy. Strengths percent for Goku and Strength GT's percent for Goku were also an insane rotation. These guys shared 5 links together, and Strengths percent for Goku was already the hardest hitting unit in the game turn 1, without GT's percent for Goku. So the fact that this guy activated almost all of Super Saiyan 4 Goku's offensive links just made that rotation so crazy. This was by far the hardest hitting rotation at the time. This was the first ever rotation in this game's history where you had a unit who was able to casually launch 1 million plus super attacks. It was just insane. But what's even crazier is that Int LR's percentage Gohan dropped the next month, and that guy was just straight up the new best unit in the game. And he was so good that him and In Sword of Hope Trunks might be a rotation worth mentioning. They shared 3 links together. In Sword of Hope Trunks was an orb changer, and LR's percent Gohan was not only a nuker, but the hardest hitting unit in the game by far. The guy had legit double the APT of the second hardest hitting unit in the game. So yeah, that rotation was pretty good. Another honorable mention of that year would be the rotation of Physicals percent Gotenks and Super Sentry Gotenks. Super Sentry Gotenks was the hardest hidden Neogo's leader at the time, but only if you were able to hit his 11 key super attack. Something that was actually pretty hard to do because that guy had so many key links. But the thing is, Physicals percent Gotenks activated almost all of Super Sentry Gotenks' offensive links while only sharing 1 key link with him. And Physicals percent Gotenks also got a Dokkan Awakening with his release, so he was now even better than before. Like, this rotation was very strong at the time. Now moving on to an actual crazy rotation. Strength Dokkan Fest Rose and LR Tech Rose and Zamasu. This rotation was just insane, as those two guys not only linked almost perfectly together, Rose also gave support to the whole rotation, turning the LR into a complete monster. Like, that rotation just had everything. A ridiculous amount of damage once the LR was fully built up, defense with Rose's support and attack debuff, and utility with the LR's healing and Rose's key support. Like, that rotation was generally just perfect, and had literally no weaknesses at the time. I think it's also worth mentioning the rotation of LR Tech Rose and Zamasu and their TUR, who was their best linking partner before the release of Strength Rose. Like, on release, this was definitely one of the strongest rotations in the game, but so few people, if none, could actually run it. LRs were legit almost impossible to pull at the time, so pulling multiple copies of an LR was just something only the biggest of wells could do. But if by some miracle you were able to run that rotation, it was just insane at the time. Just imagine a rotation that healed you 25% HP every other turn, that could tank pretty well since they both raised their defense on super for multiple turns, while doing an insane amount of damage after a couple of hits. Like, this was for sure one of the strongest rotations in this game's history. As a matter of fact, that rotation was so strong that people who were lucky enough to pull a dupe of the LR were wondering whether it was worth it to keep a copy as a TUR or just unlock the bottom path for the LR. Like, it was just that good. Talking about LR and TUR rotations, there's also a rotation of LR in Bojack and his TUR. That rotation was also something only the Wells could do, and this one was arguably even better than the LR Tech Rose and Zamasu plus their TUR rotation, since Bojack's links were just so insane. Like they both shared 6 links together, and all of those links gave them 6 ki, 60% attack, and 25% defense when Big Bad Bosses was active. Like this was just insane, especially since they already both had a ridiculous amount of stats from their passives. Like that rotation was just cracked, like stats wise. We also had that same year the rotation of physical Omega Shenron and physical Sin Shenron. They shared 6 links together and both fit under physical Omega's new leader skill, which at the time was the highest leader skill buff a team could have, so that instantly made that rotation one of the best in the game. But I think what really made it broken was the fact that both the Shenrons debuffed the enemies passively, meaning that in Super Brotherhood, the enemies were consistently debuffed at all times when those two guys were on rotation, which was just so insane. Like these guys really turned the Shadow Dragon Saga SBR stage into a complete joke. It was crazy. Moving on to Inti Goku. That guy had multiple pretty decent rotations throughout his prime. Inti Goku and Strength God Goku was probably the most infamous one. They shared 4 links together, one very powerful key link over in a flash, and 3 very strong offensive links. Like bro, that rotation was just so good. But I prefer that guy when he was linked next to Tech Vegito Blue. This was probably the highest APT rotation in the game on release. Like Tech Vegito Blue was literally just straight up the hardest hidden TUR on release, and Inti Goku activated his strongest attack links, while also being one of the best TURs in the game at the time. So that rotation was just something else on the Realm of Gods team. Talking about crazy offensive rotations, Ints per Century Bardock and Ints per Gogeta was also a pretty insane rotation around the same time. They shared 5 links together, gaining a total of 5 ki and 35% attack, with an additional 40% attack when below 70% HP, thanks to Bardock's support, and since Gogeta was effective against all types, yeah, that rotation was just insane. Ints per Century Bardock and Tech LRs per Century Goku was also a crazy rotation at the time. They shared 4 links together, and Tech's per Century Goku was arguably the hardest hidden turn 1 unit in the game at the time, if you were able to get his 18 ki super attack. Like the only other unit that could out damage this guy turn 1 was LR Ints per Century Gohan, but you needed a lot of key steers to do so, especially on the turns where Super Century Bardock's support type buff was active. Like those turns were crazy. The amount of damage that came out of that rotation was just something else. And if you had 2 Bardocks on rotation, like bro, that rotation single-handedly made the Super Century category the hardest hidden category in the game. It was just something else. The 3rd year anniversary LRs were also just insane together. And the crazy part is that you couldn't even run them together until the release of LR Kill and Caulifla, literally more than a year after their initial release. And they were still one of the best rotations in Dokkan's history. Just imagine how crazy that rotation could have been if you could run them on release, or if they were on the Pearson's category at the time. But yeah, those two were cracked pretty much everywhere. Like they just had so much stats. But the event where they really shined was the Legendary Goku event, because you could actually see them transform there. And that rotation of LRs per Vegito and LRs per Gogeta was just something else, bro. Vegito was doing so much damage with his counters, while also being cracked defensively, thanks to his high stats. And Super Gogeta was just juicing him up with links, while also being insane offensively too, with his stats and super effective against all types. Like those two together were just crazy, bro. Crazy. Talking about the Legendary Goku event, LR Kill and Caulifla and their TUR was for sure the strongest rotation in any long event the game has known. Like it was just overkill at the time. It was ridiculous. As you probably already know, LR Kill and Caulifla completely stumped the Legendary Goku event on release. Like I mean, it literally turned it into a joke. And their TUR shared 6 links with them, while also being absolutely cracked. They were literally just a baby version of the LR, and the LR was already overkill for that event. Like LR Kill and Caulifla were just so far and away the best unit in the game that you can imagine that their TUR is just absolutely cracked, even if it was like a slightly worse version of the LR. So yeah, you can imagine how crazy that rotation was. They launched like a billion super attacks, did a shit ton of damage, and were literally untouchable, since they had dodge while also stacking defense on super. This was just insane. Strength Jiren and Tech Hit was also an insane rotation. Probably the strongest SBR rotation in this game's history. Like that rotation in SBR was just cracked. Like they shared 5 links together. Both could stun enemies, and both had additional buffs when attacking stunned enemies. Like it was just insane. LR Goku and Frieza and Tech Tien. LR Goku and Frieza were already the best unit in the game, and the hardest hidden turn 1 unit in the game. And that was without the help of Tech Tien. Then with Tien, they were just so ridiculous. They shared 3 links together, and then Tien gave him an additional 3 ki and 40% attack and defense. And since they gained most of their attack on super, all of those buffs were calculated separately, meaning that next to Tien, LR Goku and Frieza had 363% attack on super. Like, bro. At the time, a buff that big on an LR was just something like unbelievable, bro. Unbelievable. Like, these guys were hitting so damn hard for free. And the other thing that made that rotation so insane was the fact that this was before the link level update. So them having over and a flash meant they could get up to 6 ki in the middle slot. Because, yeah, before the link level update, killings could proc up to 2 times within the turn. So, this was just cracked. Like, an insane rotation. LR's percent Trunks and LR Easy Physical Trunks was not as crazy of a rotation, but still very good. They shared 4 links together, and LR's percent Trunks, linked up next to this guy, had 7 ki, 40% attack, and 30% defense. Like, that was actually pretty insane for a time, and just a very fun rotation. Like, this was for sure one of my favorite rotations in Dokkan's history. Int LR Cell and Physical LR Cell were also a pretty crazy rotation. They shared 6 links together, and on release that rotation was definitely very good, but only got better with time, because with the link level update, those common cell links like Gentleman or Ultimate Life Form just became so much better. And talking about LR Physical Cell, he was one of those units that you could run with their TUR. Him and his TUR were also a pretty insane rotation on release. Well, more in SBR, since they both had AoE super attacks and gained ki and attack per enemies, while also sharing 6 links together. Like, that rotation was just cracked in the monotype SBR stages. But by that time, the metal had already shifted to category SBR stages, so it wasn't like as crazy, but still a rotation worth mentioning. Now, this rotation was not only insane, but also so fun at the same time. The LR Blue Fusions. In base, they were already a pretty decent rotation, sharing 5 links together, but it only got crazy once they transformed, now sharing 6 links together, and just building up so much stats. Like, by the end of the Legendary Goku event, those guys together were just doing so much damage, and that active skill turn was simply the best in the game. Like, nothing in the game could survive that turn, bro. It was just insane, and just so much fun. Talking about fun, one other crazy rotation of the time featuring the Blue Fusions was the rotation of Easy Physical Vegito Blue and LR Tech Vegito Blue. They shared 6 links together, and you could generally one-turn the last phase of the Legendary Goku event with that rotation, and pretty easily too, which was pretty crazy to see at the time. We could even mention the rotation of AGL Blue Gogeta and LR Blue Gogeta. It wasn't as crazy as the other rotation, but still strong and fun too. Easy Attack Beerus and LR Strength Beerus and Whis was also a pretty good rotation of the time. They shared 6 links together, and since their buffs were calculated separately, they were just hitting so hard, while also being so tanky. And if you dropped too low, you had Tech Beerus' Rage Mode, which was just insane. And once that was over, you could just heal back up with the LR, since they healed on Super. Like, that rotation was just so cool. But I personally prefer the rotation of Dokkan Fest Beerus, LR Beerus and Whis, and the Strength Banner unit Whis. That rotation was also insane for pretty much the same reasons as before. Like, physical Dokkan Fest Beerus was literally Easy Attack Beerus but on crack. And Strength Whis gave an additional 50% attack to the whole rotation, while being pretty much untouchable, and also healing you even more. Like, that rotation was just something else. Another crazy rotation that year was the rotation of Strengths % Blue Kaioken Goku and LR Physicals % Blue Kaioken Goku and Blue Evolution Vegeta. Not only did they share 6 links together, but once you drop below 50% HP, the average APT of that rotation with both their active skills active was just something, bro, something else. Like, Strengths % Blue Kaioken Goku's Spirit Bomb was already doing so much damage on its own, but then he also buffed the whole rotation, and the LR Goku and Vegeta also had an active skill that gave them even more attack. Like, like, this was the Glass Cannon rotation. You most of the time needed to use like an item to stay alive, but the enemy was pretty much dead that turn. So yeah, this is definitely worth mentioning. LR Tech per Gogeta and LR Strength per Vegito. Those two guys were literally built to be run together. In base, they activated all of their links. 7 out of 7 links, bro, active at all time between them. And Super Vegito's transforming condition needed him to drop below 77% HP, while for Gogeta, you had to be above 70% HP. But the thing is that they both healed you transformed, meaning that if you fused into Super Vegito first, you could then fuse into Super Gogeta. And transformed, those two guys were just cracked. LR Tech per Gogeta was an absolute beast defensively, with his damage reduction and super attack nullification, and LR Strength per Vegito was just ridiculous offensively, with his counters. And since they both had Scalders, that rotation was literally unstoppable for their first 5 turns. You could just tank everything with Gogeta and counter everything to Oblivion with Vegito. That rotation literally dominated everything it could at a time. It literally destroyed every single event, bro. But mainly the GT Legendary Goku event. Like, this is for sure probably like a top 5 best rotation in Dokkan's history. Like, it was just that insane. LR AGL full power Frieza and in third form Frieza was also a crazy rotation that completely dominated the GT Legendary Goku event. They shared 5 links together, and since Frieza stacked defense and super, he could comfortably be put in slot 1, especially with the third form Frieza support type buff, who was also pretty cracked offensively. Like, that guy after a couple of attacks was just hitting so hard, while also attacking so many times. Like, rotation was just cracked. That same celebration, we could also run the pretty cracked rotation of LR AGL Super Sensu Gohan, Int LR Namek Goku, and Int Android 16. Like, do I even need to explain how ridiculous that rotation was if you were able to pull it off? LR AGL Super Sensu Gohan was still somehow the hardest hitting unit in the game, at least next to Super Saiyan Goku, and he shared 7 links with Namek Goku, gaining a total of 3 ki and 75% attack. And then you had Android 16 giving 3 ki and 50% attack to the whole rotation. Like, this rotation was just juicing up LR Super Sensu Gohan to oblivion. It was just so crazy. But obviously it was almost impossible to actually run properly in the hard event of the time, because you had to run Int Android 16 under no leader skill. But just imagine, if that guy was under Namek Goku's leader skill, this would have definitely been like a top 10 rotation in Dokkan history. Another pretty fun rotation was physical Super Saiyan Goten and Trunks, plus the easy Trunks, Goten, or Tech Krillin. Like, this was probably one of my favorite rotations that year, because Goten and Trunks were just a fun unit in general. Like, I remember building them full dodge and putting them in slot 1, hoping for them to dodge so that they could proc their passive and get the ball rolling. Then with the support of the Easies or Krillin, they just hit like crazy, bro. Since they gained like a lot of their stats on super. So like, everything was calculated separately. It was just insane. And all of the Gotens and Trunkses synergized just so well together on that team. Like, that rotation where just everything aligned with all of the different support type units on rotation was just something else, bro. Something else. LR Strength got Goku in Hit and Strength Hit were also a pretty fun rotation. Strength Hit was a monotype support, given 3 ki and 50% attack and defense to the LR, while also sharing 5 links with them. And then the LR had a multiplicative buff in slot 3. So like, that turn where they supered in slot 3, the amount of damage those guys were dishing out was just was just something. And I'm pretty sure they were like one, if not the best Yellow Queen LR at the time, so just them having like a perfect linking partner just made like that rotation just so insane. Easy Attack got Goku, and the LR Gods was also a pretty crazy rotation at the time. They shared 5 links together, and the LR Gods were arguably the best unit in the game, but their main weakness is that they weren't untouchable in slot 1. But guess who was? Tech got Goku. Well, sure, you had to face like a movie bosses or pure same category enemy, but guess what? The hardest fight at the time was against a character who was on both those categories. And on top of that, Tech got Goku as a Rainbow Orb Changer, and the LR Gods transformed needed Rainbow Key Spheres. So this was just like an insane rotation. This is probably one of the best rotations in Dokkan's history, simply because at the time, very few rotations were untouchable. This was literally the closest thing we had to an untouchable rotation at the time. So yeah, this was crazy. Now, this rotation is not even close to being one of the best in the game, but it was still strong and fun. LR Physical Fish Play Goku and LR Strength Kaiken Goku. Strength Kaiken Goku was like the hardest hidden turn 1 LR at the time, and not only did the Fish Play LR share 5 links with him, he also gave him 30% attack and defense. And Kaiken Goku had a ton of multiplicative buffs on super, meaning that support went a long way with him. Like, the guy was hitting 10 million plus super attacks turn 1 with a 50% crit chance. Like, it was just insane. If the Fish Play Goku was a slot 1 character and they both had a 200% team, this would have easily been one of the best rotations in Dokkan's history. Like, think about it. Like, the rotation was pretty solid on a 170% team. I can only imagine how crazy it could have been on a 200% team at the time. Int LR Vegeta and Trunks and in Dokkan Fest Majin Vegeta. Like, sure, offensively they weren't as crazy as the other rotations we have covered so far, but that rotation came out at a time where defense was just so much more valuable. Very few rotations in the game were truly untouchable by that point. And this was one of them. LR Vegeta and Trunks were just a wall slot 1. They literally just couldn't die. And Int Majin Vegeta was just untouchable post super. So this was just a wall of a rotation. And LR Vegeta and Trunks could still dish out a decent amount of damage their active skill turn. So yeah, that rotation was pretty damn good. Another cool rotation around that same time was the rotation of AGL Captain Ginyu and his 2 banner units. Strength Rekum and Guldo were just a wall in slot 1, they literally just couldn't be touched. Then Ginyu in the second slot after a couple of supers could tank a super depending on the boss, or if he was transformed he could literally just dodge it. And Int, Jace and Birder, sure, were a dodge or die unit, but they gave 3 key and 60% attack and defense to the whole rotation. And since Ginyu himself also gave 30% attack and defense to the rotation, it meant that for that turn, the whole rotation had an additional 3 key and 90% attack and defense. Like, this was just insane. Like, that rotation was just crazy, bro. LR Strength, Final Form, Cooler, and Easiest Strength Dokkan Fest Cooler. That rotation was just insane offensively. Like, it was genuinely something else. They shared 6 links together, and with Dokkan Fest Cooler's support, LR Final Form Cooler was just an absolute monster, launching a billion of spur attacks, which all did just so much damage. It was just crazy, and just such an easy rotation to run. The only issue it had is that neither of the coolers were slot 1 characters, well, at least for their first few turns. But after a couple of stacks, you could, depending on the scenario, put any of them in slot 1, especially the turn where you had LR Cooler's active skill, since you could destroy the enemy's first attack, which with some luck could have been the enemy's super attack, and yeah, by that point, the enemy was just dead, bro. Like, it was over for him. Talking about Cooler, Strength Cooler and Transform Strength Cooler were actually a decent rotation too. They shared 7 links together, and the Final Form Cooler just did so much damage with the support from the untransformed Cooler. Like, this was probably the strongest keyword rotation at the time of his release, at least like against a pure or hybrid strength category enemy, which was like half of the game. LR Orange Piccolo and the Strength Banner Unit Piccolo was also a decent rotation. They shared 4 links together, and the Banner Unit Piccolo gained damage reduction per movie heroes category allies on rotation, meaning that the LR Piccolo proc that part of his passive, and the Banner Unit also supported the whole rotation for 2 key and 30% defense, as well as an additional 30% attack when facing an extreme class enemy. So you can guess that that rotation was just insane defensively. The only problem is that it lacked damage, since most of LR Piccolo's damage came from his giant form transformation, which could only be activated starting from the 6th turn with the Banner Unit Piccolo on rotation. But yeah, this was still a very good rotation at the time. Dokkan Fest Gamma 1 and 2 were also a pretty decent rotation. They shared 6 links together, and Strength Gamma 1 was just a beast defensively, meaning he easily covered the slot 1 slot, while HL Gamma 2 was very good defensively, and could hold his own defensively in slot 2 and 3. And since they also supported each other, yeah, like, of course that rotation was going to be good. They were meant to be run together, like, clearly. LR Vegeta and Trunks, and LR Strength Future Gohan, LR Physical Sword of Hope Trunks, or Easy Int Future Gohan were all very valid rotations. Like, LR Vegeta and Trunks were just so crazy defensively that they could still be run in slot 1 more than a year after their initial release. And the thing with the 3 units that I mentioned is that they were all pretty much untouchable in slot 2 or 3, while also linking up pretty well with LR Vegeta and Trunks. The best one was probably LR Future Gohan, since he had the domain and was actually for sure the strongest defensively out of the 4 in slot 2 or 3. Then Int Easy Future Gohan not only gave 1 key and 30% attack and defense to Vegeta and Trunks, he was also untouchable under 58% HP, and transformed he was just untouchable with his 58% damage reduction. LR Sword of Hope Trunks was also pretty much unkillable in slot 2 or 3, but the problem is that when you wanted to use his standby, you had to move LR Vegeta and Trunks, and those guys outside of their active skill turn just couldn't move slots. Like, they couldn't think anything in slot 2 or 3. But yeah, if you timed everything perfectly, it was definitely doable, and an insane rotation for sure. I guess we also had the rotation of LR AGL Vegito Blue and Tech Easy Vegito Blue. As much as I hate that card, I can't deny that this rotation was pretty crazy. AGL Vegito Blue was just tanky enough in slot 1 for you to not die, and Easy Attack Vegito Blue was just so cracked offensively that he just completely stumped the enemy in slot 2. And bro, that turn where you could pop their active skills, holy bro, it was literally game over. Like, you just won. Limit Breakers percent for Vegito and Physicals percent for Vegito was also a pretty cracked rotation. They shared 6 links together, and Physicals percent for Vegito gave 2 key and 60% attack and defense to the Limit Breakers percent for Vegito, who was not only a wall defensively, but also an absolute beast offensively. That guy was easily triple supering every turn, critting left and right. Like, that rotation was just insane, and completely dominated all of the short events of the time. Like, bro, once you popped that Vegito's active skill, it was just over. Like, the enemy was just dead, bro. As an honorable mention, we also have the rotation of Physicals percent for Vegito and Text percent for Broly when they first released. They shared 4 links together, some pretty big offensive links, gaining a total of 2 key and 50% attack. Dense percent for Vegito gave an additional 2 key and 40% attack and defense to Broly, meaning the guy next to Vegito had 4 key, 90% attack and 40% defense. Like, this was pretty crazy, and since Broly got all of his buffs on Super, everything was calculated separately, even in post super, Broly had 356% attack. Like, the guy was hitting like a truck, and triple super the most of the times. Like, it was just a crazy fun rotation. The Ins percent trio and the easiest Spirit Bomb absorbed Goku was a pretty decent rotation. They linked perfectly together, activating all of their links, and they were both pretty hard hitters. Like, the rotation wasn't game breaking or anything, but they just synergized so well together since they both needed key spheres and were at the same time both orb changers, but one guy created rainbow key spheres while the other same type orbs, and they both wanted Super Saiyan characters on rotation. Like, they were just built to be run together. Dokkan Fest Angel Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Super Easy Super Saiyan 3 Goku were also a pretty nasty rotation for their time. That rotation genuinely never failed me in the Buu Saga Red Zone. Like, they shared 5 links together, and Super Easy Super Saiyan 3 Goku was just crazy next to this guy. He most of the time than not triple supered for me while having guaranteed crits turn 1, and you could even run him in slot 1. Like, even if his dodge failed you, he could still take a hit or two for most bosses at a time. And Angel's Percent Goku was also pretty decent offensively in slot 2 next to him. And you could always put Angel's Percent Goku in slot 1 if needed. Like, this was for sure one of the strongest turn 1 rotation the game has known. LR Tech UI Goku and Easy LR AGL MUI Goku was a pretty decent rotation. They shared 6 links in base and 7 transformed, but what really made that rotation crazy was the fact that they were the 2 best dodge units in the game, and that Tech MUI Goku's domain stopped the enemies from cancelling dodge. So once you got Tech MUI Goku out, the fight was pretty much over. Like, there was literally nothing the enemy could do. It was just a wrap from there. LR Tech MUI Goku was doing a billion damage with his counters, and Easy LR AGL MUI Goku was just hitting so hard with Tech MUI Goku's domain. Like, it was just insane. And even if you were to die by some miracle, most often than not, AGL MUI Goku's revive was still up, so you could just revive. Like, that rotation was literally untouchable. It was crazy. The 6-year anniversary LRs were also not a bad rotation. Like, it's still to this day one of the strongest rotation turn 1. The only problem is that they could get caught between their second appearance and the time their revive conditions were met, but still a phenomenal rotation. Tech LR Broly and Int Broly were also a decent rotation. Tech LR Broly was literally just the extreme class version of Beast Gohan, an absolute beast of a slot 1 unit. And Int LR Broly was pretty much untouchable post super, so they covered each other. And Int Broly also at the same time buffed Tech Broly with his domain and post revive support. He also had utility with his healing per key spheres obtained. And bro, they literally activated all of their links together, like 7 out of 7 links. Like, when you see that, you already know the rotation is going to be crazy. Now, moving on to the literal best rotation the game has ever known. LR Techs per Vegito and LR AGLs per Gogeta. Do I even have to explain why this rotation was so good? Like, just imagine having the best counter unit in the game's history, with arguably the best support type unit in the game's history, and they just juice each other up, while the counter unit just directs all of the attacks to him. Like, not a single boss in the game could survive that rotation of Super Vegito and Super Gogeta. This rotation single-handedly inflated the HP of all of the bosses in the game. Like, the whole game was built around that rotation because of how ridiculously OP it was. The whole strategy during their prime was to just survive the fight until you could get them to transform, and then it was just over. Like, bro, it's still to this day one of the best rotations in the game. It's just that it's way harder to pull off now, since their base forms just get clapped in today's content. But if the enemy doesn't stun you and does like more than like what, 7 attacks in a turn, yeah, it's just a wrap. Anyways, this is the end of the video. This took forever to script, finding and remembering all of Dokkan's greatest rotations, and I'm sure I even missed some. Dokkan has released so many crazy units in the past year that, yeah, for sure I missed something. So feel free to leave them in the comments down below. But yeah, that was it. Leave a like if you've enjoyed the video. It helps more than you think. Thanks to everyone who's still till the end, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Peace.